In this video, I plan to quickly demonstrate the drawing of a basic coffee table with tapered legs using commonly available dressed all round timber profiles available from Bunnings. In drawing this table, we'll be using groups and guides, move and copy, push and pull. It's really quite a simple process. The first thing to explain is that the keyboard shortcuts will be visible as I'm going through the drawing. Some assumed knowledge is being expected in the video, so I may use shortcuts rather than actually clicking on the tool. The spacebar obviously selects here. Push and pull, as we roll over it, you can see the P. Now I might click it, or I might just press P or spacebar back to that tool. Over here we've got T for tape measure, which also initiates guides, and so on. So the first thing I would do when I'm doing any of this drawing is actually file save. That simply sets up a file backup if I've got one set up in my preferences. I am doing this on a Mac, so you might see some little tiny differences. If you want to go and understand some earlier parts of my Sketchup setup, and it's the same for a Mac or Windows, look at the other videos that I'll be making on my channel. I usually always draw with these views on the shortcut visible as these styles as well. So that allows the view to be, for example, X-ray or just regular, and overhead views, normal views, and so on. Something to remember is this zoom extents, which allows me to zoom into the area that I'm working on, or rather the full extent of any drawing. In starting the drawing, the other thing I would do, I normally prefer, of course, being in Australia, they would always be drawn in metric. So the first thing we might do is go to Window Model Info and check this for every drawing. Obviously you want millimetres for most drawings. Precision, I leave it at 1/10 of a millimetre. That allows me to do half millimetres, which is useful if I've got a timber like 19 millimetres. To draw a half of that, it's 8.5 millimetres, and that's why I leave it at 0.0 on the units. The other thing I would do is go into Window Styles and then Edit, which is already selected, and click here in this middle one, and you'll see as we wait, rolling over, it says Background Settings. So I've got that selected now, and I turn off the sky and turn off the ground. You might also want to check that the background, you might have some crazy colour going on with the background, and notice that your background is something ridiculous like that. So I would have my background white. I find that a lot easier to work with. I would get rid of my friend here, so using the spacebar to turn the selection on and just clicking and dragging over the man, I'm going to delete and remove him. Looking at my drawing now, we've got the axis. The blue axis I like to prefer in drawing having that up and down. The red axis I have off to the right and left, and the green axis is into the distance and toward me. You can see that there are dotted lines, so there's a dotted red line on the left and a solid red line to the right. And the same with blue up, dotted blue down. That simply allows you to get some orientation. So if you're a little bit lost in your drawing, what I would normally do is hit O for orbit, and just you can click and move, and depending on how you're using it, it moves around. A lot easier to draw with a mouse, I have to say, or specialised tools rather than the trackpad on your laptop. H for hand moves it around, but again, I won't go into too much detail on all of these things because this is something that can be seen in the other videos. Something to notice here is that we're missing our input measurement box, which is pretty important. So using the Mac, I'll just adjust the screen size. So that is now visible. It's quite important to be able to use this, very critical. The first thing I do to keep things simple, we need to draw the table legs. Now, the drawing we're going to be doing is this. This is an orthogonal view here with an isometric projection. The isometric is just a bit of a rough sketch to help us visualize what we're looking at. And of course, being orthogonal here, we've got the front view, the end view, and the top view. The dimensions here allow me to see what's going on. So I'll leave that there. You can take a screenshot if you're desperate, or get your hands on the original file through school. on the coffee table learning site. So I've got a printout, and I won't refer back to that one again. First thing I'm going to do is start drawing a leg. Now, it's only necessary to draw one leg. When I start drawing, I always, unless there's a particular reason, I always make sure my lines are on an axis. It says they're on red axis, and I know that because it's red. If I want to draw it on the green axis, I'd rotate it around to start drawing down the green. Same with the blue. One tip that I will show you now, because it's very useful if you're having trouble keeping it on an axis, by pressing the right arrow on the keyboard, notice it snaps automatically and stays locked to the red axis. I'll press the up arrow and it snaps and stays locked to the blue axis, and guess what the left arrow does? It should make a liar of me, but that is snapping fairly well to the green axis, and it's certainly not allowing me onto the blue or the red axis. So anyway, I've clicked and I'm dragging. Now I'm going to type my length in, because this length ought to be 65 millimeters. So I'm putting in a 65, and SketchUp's inviting me. I press escape to unsnap that axis. SketchUp's asking me for the next one. I'm going to click at the end of that line and just type in a 25. And whilst you can't see it, maybe I should zoom in. Pardon me. Select the end of this line. This is very much basic stuff, but with SketchUp it has an inference. It always selects to an end point or a midpoint. There are a few other tricks as well, but it's very handy if you just roll over the line. If you want to draw a line that's exactly 65, because we do, we can simply roll over this line, and as we move back, it should, there it is. And if you can see that very well on my screen, because the resolution's pretty fine, but there's a little dotted green line, and that's indicating that my red line is now at the same length as the line in front of it and ending on the green plane of the first line. So I'm going to click that, and might as well just keep going and close that. If in SketchUp we have made a 2D shape, like we have here a rectangle, where all of the lines making the side, if they all connect, then it gives us a solid. Now I can get rid of that solid. I'll just press delete. But let's say I didn't want to do that. I could either press undo, of course, or I can just draw another line on top of, does no harm, on top of one of the existings, and we've got that line back. So just to deviate there, we are still drawing our first leg. This is the bottom of the leg at 65 millimeters by 25 millimeters. At the moment it's 2D. And what about I just zoom out a little bit. And now I'm going to go for my P for push-pull, which is this tool here. And click it and drag it up. As I'm dragging it up, you'll notice down here in the distance on the bottom right, it's increasing. I'm just going to type in the dimension I want, which is 450 millimeters, and zoom out. Now zooming out's a bit of a pest. I can hit O for orbit. What about I just hit this tool here, zoom extents. And that now gives me my whole leg. Now, this leg is fine, but it needs to have a taper in it. Now the taper doesn't start up the top. The taper actually starts about 60 millimeters down. So we need to set a starting point 60 millimeters down. How do we do that? Well, the easy way to do it is to use our tape measure. So I've gone over here to the tape measure, click that. Instead of clicking the tape measure on an edge or a corner, an end point of a line, I'm actually going to click it on a line and click and hold and drag down. Now you can't probably see, there is a blue on this line, so it's telling me I'm on the blue axis, and I'm just going to let it go anywhere. So I can have my fingers back off the mouse and just type in 60. That now has popped that line exactly 60 millimeters from where I started. Now I need to put a taper in this leg, so I want my little taper here to come in 5 millimeters from each side. Easiest way to do that is click on that edge and drag it. I could let it go and just hit the number 5, and it knows to put that line 5 millimeters from where we started. This will all make sense in a sec. And I'm going to do this and just press 5 again from that end. And now I have 3 guidelines that will allow me to draw a solid line on my leg. Now, all I need to do is go to where the taper starts, which is up here at this intersection. And then I'm going to go, I can go down here. Just on that, notice how when I zoom out and then zoom in where my mouse is, the zoom point is zooming into where the mouse is. So that's a handy little thing to know about in SketchUp. Anyway, let's get on with it. I'm going to do a line, a solid line from there to this intersection here, and I might as well, while I'm here, finish that one off and do one from there to there. What this has just done now is created another plane. How about we get rid of the guides because I don't need them anymore. I can do it a few ways. I can select the guides and press delete. I'll undo that. Or I can just go edit, delete guides. Or I could actually go view and turn guides off. That will keep my guides so I don't have to look at them. Let's just get rid of them, delete guides. So now using the push-pull tool, I can click on that surface because it's created that surface, push it right to the end. It won't let me go any further because it kind of knows that I've reached the thickness of the material, and just click it and it's done. I'm going to hit O so I can see this back side of the leg and push that in, done. Now what I've got there, you can see it's actually generated a little line because we do have a straight edge there now, theoretically. So that's our leg. Now whenever I do any object, if I was going to do any more work on this leg, I might continue to do that now. But for this very simple table, we're not putting any joints in to show mortise and tenon joints or biscuit joints or whatever. I'm going to save the leg as a group. The reason for that is that when I add additional parts to the table, let's say the skirt or stretcher as it might be called, between the legs, they don't become a part of it. And that's really important to understand. If you work in groups, everything is separate. That allows you to make changes later on without the nightmare of redrawing lots of things. In another episode, we could talk about components, and components are even more advanced because once you've made one component, let's call it a leg, and then edit it, it actually edits all of the same components. So if you wanted to shorten your legs, you just shorten one and everything's done. But for now, we're not doing that. We're doing groups, and that's just keeping it simple. So to create a group, we can select it all and then right click and go make group. And that object is now a group. If I was to undo that, I could also triple click. When you're clicking in SketchUp, one click selects whatever you're contacting. Notice there. 2 clicks selects what you're touching and its immediate edges. And 3 clicks, guess what? Selects the whole object. So it's the same as dragging across it. Now that I've selected it all, I'm going to go right click, make group, or I could go up here and go edit, make group. And notice there's a shortcut. Look for the shortcuts when you're learning SketchUp, it's handy to do. So we're going to make this into a group. Going back to, let's just pretend we wanted to edit this group, it does matter. Let's just say I wanted it to be a little bit thinner, the material. At the moment I think we've done a 25mm material. Say I wanted to make it 20. What would I do? Well, you would think I'd just go here to the push-pull tool, click on this surface, but hang on, there's something, a red, okay. But I would click on this surface and try to, nothing's working. And the reason for that is that you need, when you've made something into a group, remember this, you need to go into edit group mode. How to do that? There's 2 ways that are easy. You can just right click on it and go edit group. And notice it puts this little box around it. Call that the edit group box. The other way to do it, just click off it when you finish. The other way to do it is to just double click. Or in fact, even one click, and it seems to know. I normally double click, and that gets me into edit group mode. So now, if I hit my push pull, I'm back into like a normal object and can do anything with it. It's very useful to remember that. It stops you accidentally making changes to groups, but it also allows you to edit your group. So hopefully that covers that bit of info for you. Now with our legs, on the drawing, I know that our legs are 760mm from the inside here to the inside on the other leg. So all I'm going to do is copy it. Now the way to copy something in SketchUp is to hit the M button, that's the same as this, the move tool. But then On a Windows, you actually press Control. On a Mac, it's Alt. So I will press that button, and notice there's a little plus sign again. See the plus sign on my Move tool cursor. That means it's going to make a copy. Now I don't just click anywhere, because if I click anywhere, it's not going to land where I want it. You've got to think with SketchUp. If you roll over certain parts, it will grab to that part, and that's important so that we don't waste our time with measurements. We know that the distance from here to the other is 760. Now I need to add on the thickness of this timber, so that's 65. So in fact, that's going to be, I think it should be 815. Let's just do it and see what happens. So I'm going to click. It's made a copy for me. It's actually on the green. I want it to be on the red axis. There we go. I can try to get it on the red axis. Now that I'm on it, I've got the dotted line. I'm going to type in 815, and it's just going to put it there for me. What I'm doing now is just going into the tool and measuring my distance there. And my distance is 750. You got my maths wrong. It should have been 760. That's easy. I'm just going to select it all. It's already selected. Move it from an end point. That way it's more accurate. And drag and just type in 10, because that's 10 millimeters. That's all I needed to fix it up. Now I've got 2 legs. What about I need to make 4? All I'm going to do is copy those 2 and put a set distance between them. That distance is 300, so I'm going to hit my M for Move tool, click it on this point here, and then it doesn't matter if I do it before or later, but I'm going to hit the Control or Option, depending if you're on a Windows or a Mac. Duplicate that. It's now going down 300, and I check my measurement in between, and that's 275. So I botched up the measurements again. Who cares? I can just hit M, select an endpoint, move it down the green axis by 25 millimeters, hit T for measurement, check my inside should be 300, and it's done. So now what we've done is drawn 4 legs. They're all the same. We're happy with those. The next thing I need to do is some stretches. Now those stretches, coming back to this, you can see there's 25 by 60 going across there, and it will be 25 by 60 by 760 on the inside, 25 by 60 by 300 there. So this is probably a good opportunity to show you in groups. Now I know if I put my tool there and just drag it down to this point, it does say 60 already, so that's good. Now I might actually just put my guide there to show you why I use guides. Here's another flat surface. I'm just going to push that guide in along that surface, which I know is on the red axis. Always keep an eye on which axis you're drawing on. Try to remember where your objects are. That's easy to do. 25. Now what I have is a line. Now remember, I haven't selected this group to edit. So what I am drawing is not going to be stuck to this group. And that's really important, because as we start to turn this thing that I make into a 3D object, being a piece of timber, I'm going to group it, and it will be a separate group from this, so I can move it around. Very important to remember that. When I drew these guides, sometimes it matters if you're in edit group mode and then draw the guides, but these guides are actually not connected to this group. So this guide is an independent little guide, and that can be useful. I won't deal into exactly why it's an issue, but for now, let's just get ahead and start drawing our skirt piece of timber. So I'm just going to click and let SketchUp find the points for me, because we know this is 25 by 60. And when I do that, you can see now I've got a solid face on the group. I'm going to hit P and just drag that. And for now, I could drag it all the way to here and snap it, but I actually want to show you again. This is pretty useful. So what I can do, if I select that group and press delete, and I'll undo that, it hasn't affected it. Remember, triple clicking selects, one click selects the object you're touching, 2 clicks selects its edges as well, and 3 clicks selects the object. Right click and go make group. So now what I want to do, I didn't need to go to that step yet because I should have finished it, but I'm going to demonstrate just editing the group again. I can double click it, hit P and drag it, and it snaps automatically to the edge. I don't want it to go here because it doesn't go through my piece of timber. I just want it to be on the edge there. Let Sketchup do the snapping. That's how easy it is. So now we've used just those simple guides to help us work the size out, and then a quick group to create a solid object. Why not just put this object down there? I'll just rotate our view a bit so it's a bit easier to see. But it's a no-brainer that this piece of timber here, this point here, has to go to that point there. So if I just hit the M tool, and I'll deselect to make sure it's easy to understand, hit the M tool, as I roll over it, it kind of automatically selects it. I'm going to select, I want to select that tool there, that part there, from that endpoint. I've got that. It doesn't matter that I forgot to press Alt or Option, rather Control or Option. All I need to do is press it and it keeps the original there. I'm on the red line, I'm dragging down to here. I've actually made a little mistake, doesn't matter. I'll just lock it off there for now because I needed that piece to be here. So I'll just move it one more time from there to there and it's locked in. So you can see now what we've done is created a proper stretcher. Using the Move tool again, we need to make a copy of this stretcher and actually put it now running along this way. How to do that? The easiest way is let's just make a copy. We're all over how to make a copy. You can see my plus sign on the Move tool. I'm just going to click from there, keep it on the red axis. That way I know that it's not going to do anything funny. It'll be easy to rotate it. Easy to select it again. Now, as I'm on the Move tool, you might have noticed these little red markers. So to achieve these, we just hit M for Move, and roll over the face. Notice when I click this, it allows me to rotate the piece. We want to rotate the piece this way, so it's in that orientation. Now, SketchUp actually already snaps as you come around to 180 degrees, which is usually what you would want. It says 180, we're only turning it 90, but that's just, don't worry about that. It says 180, so that's going to be correct. That was easy to do, and then I'm going to move this piece from this corner and drag it over here and just connect it to that corner. How easy is that? Let's zoom out, change our view a little bit so we can just see what we're up to. Now if I want to extend this piece, again it's a group, so P won't work. I need to get the group into edit mode and just double click it. Or remember, we can just right click and go edit group, whatever you like. Hit P, that gets us into push-pull mode, and then just select the face we want to push-pull, which in this case is this. And as I go to the edge, it just snaps there. Done. And then I'm going to copy this piece. Sorry, it's going to be tricky for me. It's just not giving me the very end. What a pest. There's probably some shortcut to actually, look, I'm just going to copy it for now. Put it somewhere, getting it out of the way of this piece because it's kind of interrupting a bit. And then I'll just move it. And it can definitely be selected now to that endpoint there, to that endpoint there. And I'm done. That now is 4 legs with the taper and the two different size skirts. So all we need is the tabletop. Because these are groups, it doesn't matter where we start with. I would suppose I plan a little bit ahead and just say to myself, I've got to draw the timber, the top of the timber. Its profile is 65 millimeters by 18 at 1,000 long. So what I might do, there's a couple of ways to attack it. One problem is going to be actually attaching the timber to the table and making sure that the top of it is exactly centered. And that's a handy one for me to explain. So what I'll do is just start drawing the tabletop off to the left. I'll show you a trick while we're there, might as well. I showed you before how you can put a guide on a line. We can just grab a line down there anywhere, stop it here. And I might start drawing my tabletop along this guide. The other thing I can do is just click here and drag from an end point rather than the edge and just create a little point out in space. That's a handy one for your tape measure to do. So that hot point there is the same level as that. So at least I know my tabletop will be, you know, level with the top of my skirt and legs. So I'm going to start drawing from here. And I'm just going to draw it out. Now it was 65. I'm going to press enter on that. It was up on the blue axis by 18 millimeters. And we'll come back to 65. I just stick on that for a second, come up and then down. Bingo, I've got myself now a 2D face. And if I just press push pull and get it started and then type in 1000, you can see down the bottom there. There we go. Now, here's a good trick. I could, I'll show you the two ways I would do this. First of all, let's make it into a group. I normally do that straight away. Now I need to copy it. I could just copy it and grab it and give it another one and do that and give it another one, do that. That's easy. Or the other way, this is handy to know about. Let's copy this one to there. Now, once we click on that, it's attached to that point. Before doing anything else, we just type in asterisk, and I think I need 2, 4, 5, 6 pieces. We've already got 2, so we'll just press asterisk 5, and that should create 5 pieces. It's called an array, A-R-R-A-Y, and it's a simple way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. It's a simple way of duplicating lots of parts. Think if you're making a chessboard and wanted to put guides at set dimensions, that's an easy way to do it. All sorts of stuff. So all I want to do now is I'm actually going to make a group out of my tabletop. What about I select, by pressing shift and clicking, I select multiple objects, go make group, and that's done. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of all my guides, because I don't want this to be confusing. And I'm going to put some guides in the middle of the table and also the bottom in the middle of my group here. The reason for that is so that I can align the two guides. This is a very useful trick if you're trying to do something complicated where you need one thing to line up with the other. Go back to the whole principle of making it into a group, putting guides in the center of the different parts, and then bringing the guides together. So I touched on before, in fact, you know what I might do here? I might turn this whole part, if I select all these parts and make them one group. Don't have to, but doesn't hurt. And we know that's all one group. So now we've effectively got 2 big groups. Now we need to put a guide right in the middle of this cavity, this space where the tabletop's going to be. I hit T, and I'm just going to grab it any edge, I don't care. And as I drag along here, notice it stops. Now I just happen to know that that is correct, and the little purple dot you can see near the tape measure indicates a center point. That's a handy one to know about in SketchUp. Clicking from there, coming down on the red axis, and I should hit there, and that should be the center. If we want to check that, we might just do this. Distance from there to there is 420. Distance from there to there is 420. Distance from there to there is 150. 150, awesome. Now I am going to go underneath it, because that's how it's going to be working for us, and do the same thing. Now I can tell you that I don't need, because I've got this line, and that line actually is the middle of the table, but I'll put one in anyway. That's that, and we'll see if this works, because it could get distracted by 500. We knew it was 1,000, so that's where it is. I'm going to let that go there. So now what we can do is see that that point there is, I'm just going to be a bit careful about saying it, that point there is the center of our table, and over here, that point there is the center of our, that's our tabletop, and that's our table. So if I'm right, by hitting the move, selecting that point there at the intersection, no, let's grab my, let's make a donkey of me. what I actually should have done, and I'm going to undo it, sorry kids, is when I put these guides in, they ought to be associated to the group. So what do I mean by that? I mean double clicking on it to activate the group, put a T in, that now is a guide that is active to that group. And if I put a guide here, hang on, I need to activate that group for editing. Click on that and drag to there. There's the middle because it's 500. And I know that point there. Click off it. Now I'm going to move. It's now selected the intersection. And because my guide is part of the group, it will move with it. And what we're going to do is just move that across to there, to that intersection on the table. It's perhaps a little bit advanced, perhaps a little bit complicated, but you can see, I won't bother measuring it, I know it is true, but you can see that's how we can use guides to locate two objects perfectly. The other way you can do it is just to drag one corner to the edge there and just use some calculations. I saw a student doing that today. That's a perfectly proper way to do it. If you want to clean things up, we might want to delete all our guides. This job's pretty much finished now. And you can see that if we wanted to get rid of something, or even just hide it, as a group, what's really handy is we've got this, let's call it geometry, and we want to just hide it. So now we can see right through it, or hide it if you like. I might go to view in geometry. I might go right click on that and just go unhide. So now we can see what's going on. Another handy thing, just looking at different views, we might just want to undo, rather unview our axes now that we've finished our drawing. And you can look at different views. So if you're making an isometric, there's an isometric or an orthogonal drawing, in a proper orthogonal drawing, you would go to camera parallel projection. That's the way it ought to look. So that we have our different orientations in the top. And if we go back to camera perspective and just do something normal like that, you might use this to look through your drawing and see how things connect or interact. That's a very handy way to work when you're drawing or editing components or groups, and you want to check that they are, one joint, for example, is meeting another joint. So we'll give it a quick. Actually, I don't think I'll worry. I was going to go for some colours, but invariably it looks a bit cheesy. So we'll just leave it the way it is. That is the finished article. Thanks for watching. Hope that was helpful, and we'll put some more videos up shortly of the different tools in more detail.